This photographer was instrumental in starting Japan's first street photography collective in the form of VIVO, which notably included renowned photographers Ikko Narahara and Shomei Tomatsu. Together, they laid the foundation for future street photography movements and collectives in their country and around the world. From there, his work continued to expand and evolve, with constant reflections on the human condition, time, space, the cosmos, and our place within it. This is Street Smarts Volume 40, Ikko Narahara. This video is brought to you by Dehancer Film Emulation. Ikko Narahara is one of the photographers who established a kind of look that has heavily influenced Japanese street photography style and plenty of street photographers around the world ever since. He was born in 1931, received a master's degree in art in 1959, and went on to establish his photographic voice in Japan before stints in Paris in the early 60s and the United States in the 1970s. His work continued to change in dramatic ways throughout his career, later becoming increasingly experimental once digital photography finally entered his life around 2000, and then when he incorporated medical devices in the form of isotope photography and X-rays. Themes of life, death, rebirth, and the human condition have all played a major part in what he's created, and his retrospective is filled with his thoughts and ideas around all of these projects, and it's done in a way that's very profound, compared to the retrospectives of many of the other photographers I've examined on this channel, his reflections having just as much of an impact on me as the work itself. Human Land was the first exhibition from Narahara. It took place at the Matsushima Gallery in 1956, and combined two of his projects that focused on people living in extreme conditions. The first project revolved around photographing Japan's Oshima Island, which is located 10 miles off the coast of Nagasaki, which is nicknamed Battleship Island because the silhouette looks like a battleship from a distance. Narahara was drawn there after it became the place with the highest population density on Earth. Large deposits of coal had been found there, leading to the Mitsubishi mining project that drew 5,000 people to relocate and cram into an area that was only 400 meters long and 160 meters wide, all of them looking for work in the mine. Today, the island has been uninhabited for over 40 years, and has become a World Heritage Site often photographed for what was left behind once the mines closed. The other project from this exhibition covers a village on Sakurajima Island, filled with people living in proximity to an active volcano that had last erupted in 1914. This eruption left the village without access to groundwater. Narahara got a lot of recognition for the power of this work, and it was that propelled him to take on photography professionally. He says that when he looks back on this era of his life, he wonders how much different things would be had he never had this exhibition at all, stating, "I would probably not have continued to take photographs over 50 years. All of the various photographs I have taken since then would never have been possible at all. The thought fills me with mystery." This exhibition would also lead Narahara to continue to photograph people living in difficult situations, cut off from regular society. Soon afterward, two additional projects came together in a book called Domains. This book includes a series that focuses on monks living in a monastery, called Garden of Silence, and the other, the living situations of a women's prison titled Within the Wall. There are different variations of how this work was printed, but all of it comes together in a 1971 book titled Man and His Land. When reflecting on those two later projects, he stated, "I believe that the photographer was an outsider, and in my daily life, I was aware of having a feeling of alienation. The feeling was in my mind, and there was no way I could see or grasp it. So I hoped that by observing how the monks and the female prisoners lived, I would be able to overcome the anxiety and emptiness I felt inside myself. I felt sure that actual reality possessed bodies that were able to leap beyond concepts. There are, of course, differences between a life of prayer chosen because of a felt inner necessity, and the life of prisoners forced by law to live apart from society. Yet, they are both worlds unto themselves, closed off by walls from the outside world. I felt a need to put myself in the psychological time and space of both of these places. There, it seemed to me, people were probing more deeply into their souls than they do in the crowded conditions of ordinary life. In the Garden of Silence that was the monastery, I also met some orphans whose parents had been killed by the atomic bombs. The air of the human heart and mind is closed off, yet also open to the outside. The same is true of photographs." VIVO was a photography collective that began in 1957. This group was formed by Ikko Narahara, in collaboration with a number of photographers who were all members of a historically significant exhibition in Japan's photographic history called Eyes of 10. This exhibition was created to show 10 voices that were changing documentary photography at the time. VIVO highlighted the actions of photographers in the post-war era that looked to comment on the tradition and change taking place in the country through a movement called the Image School. This movement was meant to elicit a response from viewers about where the line was drawn between photography as an art form and as a form of documenting evidence. They wanted to create these photos as a way of resisting post-war Americanization through the subject of post-war Japan, its modernity, its identity, and its wartime past, which was silenced but not gone. They changed how documentary photography was produced by attempting to make their photos an experience on their own, instead of simply documenting what was happening in their world through the experiences that people were having. They accomplished this through their clear concepts, a meticulous sense of composition and framing, coupled with a heavy emphasis on the symbolic. The collective used unconventional techniques of collage, double exposures, and extremely high contrast photos to convey ideas of Japan's identity, sexuality, and social inequality. Although VIVO only lasted a few years, the influence of the group can be seen throughout Japan's street photography history, and established an artistic voice and style that ties many of Japanese street photographers together. First, through the Provoke Collective, which started a short time afterwards and famously included world-renowned street photographer Daido Moriyama, and today, through the work of many of the photographers involved in the collective Void Tokyo, who are creating work that is clearly informed to some degree by Daido Moriyama, Provoke, VIVO, Jose, and Nakahara. Of this era of Nakahara's career, he stated, "I breathed photographs on Tokyo street corners the way I breathed air. In my viewfinder, those street corners changed into streets in my photographs. Whenever I released the shutter, I seemed to bear the beat of modern jazz, which I loved so much. I've come to see these photographs, which excavated the light and wind of the 1950s, were unmistakably the first steps in my travels through cities which would turn into the rest of my life." This video is brought to you by Dehancer Film Emulation, a plugin to help photographers and videographers achieve the look of film through digital means within the following software. For more information on how Dehancer can help you achieve the look of film on your frames by adding authentic and tested looks, compression, grain, halation, bloom, and more, check the link in the description. Narahara spent the 60s and 70s documenting his travels, first in Europe, and then through the United States. While in Europe, he completed two noteworthy projects. The first, titled Where Time Has Stopped, is considered Narahara's masterpiece. However, it remained out of print until 2022, giving few people access to the photos throughout the nearly 60-year period. This work is beloved because of how it pushed the bounds of documentary photography with its odd compositions and lack of common storytelling methods, even though the images are meant to act as a way of documenting his time in Europe. The name of this project comes from an experience Narahara had at a park in Paris, where he saw a couple walking together, photographed them, and then considered how they were only alive to him for that one moment. After that, they were otherwise dead in the totality of his lived experiences. He stated, "My thoughts inevitably came to this. Humans fulfill their lives by dying, and death is an important element of life. At that moment, I could believe that death was a mere temporary form of existence." The other project that came from photos from this period is titled End Circular Vision, which was the byproduct of a rare kidney condition Narahara had been diagnosed with that forced him to put photography down for some time. He said that without photography, his vision became circular. When we become so used to framing things in rectangular frames, we can begin to think of vision in those terms. He said, "Everything around me in the world was continually entering or leaving this circular vision, and I came to feel that this indistinct, dreamy way of looking at things was quite pleasant. This led him to create a book where all of the images are cropped into circles, which I'd have to believe is something that hadn't been done before, and is something that would continue into his later work when he began to work digitally." In the 1960s, Narahara ventured into the world of fashion photography. About this aspect of his photographic career, he stated, "I had studied art history in graduate school, and fashion photography seemed to me to be the area of photography that was closest to art. The thing that attracted me most about the field of fashion was that in it, human beings express themselves by placing various things on themselves and becoming living artistic shapes. In this area, I felt as if I would be able to discover a way to fuse ordinary shot photographs with made photographs, produced and directed according to my own ideas. I was filled with confidence that I would be able to enjoy taking fashion photographs, no matter how many I had to take, day after busy day. Every experience in those days was in the future tense. A literally endless sense of excitement filled the 1960s. Venice is a city that Narahara fell in love with upon arrival. He stated, "It was my first night ever in Venice. I will never be able to forget the shock I felt at suddenly becoming aware of row after row of city walls standing straight up out of the black water and revealing themselves in the sweep of the headlight on the prow of the boat on which I was riding." Narahara's love for the city is revealed through the fact that he made 3 projects dedicated specifically to it: Nightscapes, Arcades of Light, and Venetian Light. Nightscapes is a reflection on death because at the time he experienced a season of death, equal in intensity to the one I had known as a young man during the Second World War. At this time, many of the people around him, including his mother, passed away, which aligned with the time where he intensely explored photographing the city. While photographing Venice at night, he felt the city had a characteristic that made him think about rebirth and new light. Arcades of Light is Narahara's attempt to photograph all of the arches that exist in the Piazza San Marco, which is another one of the topics he became infatuated with, stating, "I tried to crystallize into the camera world of darkness the entirety of the arches of the light echoing in the 128, which start from the one facing the Grand Canal." Venetian Light is a project dedicated to the feeling one experiences at old age, when they're physically changing and decaying, but still feel young at heart. Narahara felt that Venice embodies this through how old the city is, while still being able to find youth and excitement through its parties filled with wild masks and makeup. In the 1970s, Narahara began to travel the United States. He found America to have an otherworldly quality to it. While he drove across it multiple times, which made him reflect that, "What I saw brought me to a melancholy conclusion that the United States was the closest country there was to outer space. The endlessly clear air made the outlines of the landscapes, which seemed to exist on the lunar surface vacuum, stand out all the more starkly." In the spirit of his mentality towards what he was experiencing in the United States, Narahara created Where Time Has Vanished. In considering this project, he explains that there is an energy given to photographers from the universe, in the form of light, that we volley like tennis players to make all that we create. Born in the gap between dream and reality, photography seems to carry within itself a nostalgia for these kinds of cosmic memories. The reasons why we feel surrounded by the pathos of being alive and immersed in the depths of inexpressible nostalgia when we look back at photographs is probably that we then encounter a vanishing time, which transcends our own existence. All of these feelings came together through a project from Narahara when he saw the launch of Apollo 17 in Florida. It was a profound experience for him that left him to consider his entire life and the entirety of life on Earth throughout all time. When creating the project Stellar Memories, which involved more traversing of the US until he reached the Grand Canyon when he had a moment of clarity, stating, "When water suddenly rose up through the erosion, time pervaded this deep canyon created over more than 30 million years. The interstellar time of our star and the momentary time of human beings on it overlapped to fill a lake with stillness, partaking of a truly surreal space and time." Narahara continued to focus on the human experience in a way through a 21 photograph series titled Celebration of Life that was shot from June 23rd until June 27th of 1971 at a rock festival of the same name that was held in Louisiana, in an attempt to mimic Woodstock or other similar types of festivals. Narahara has stated, "In this book, I focused exclusively on the festival participants, living their everyday life. The final project that came out of his time in America was Broadway, New York. These images combine multiple low-angle shots into an intersecting form, in the shape of diamonds, that are meant to transfer the strange energy that he felt on Broadway, and nowhere else in the city, saying that when the street was first established, it was supposed to be nothing more than a path through the wilds of nature. And even today, Broadway makes you feel as though you could glimpse the natural, spontaneous life energy it had possessed from its beginnings." Finally, the last era of work created by Narahara involved digital and medical photography. He created the project Rebirth, using isotope photography, which involves a patient having isotopes introduced into their body so that images can be created of their internal structure and activity. Through this process, Narahara felt the light was being shown through the darkness and felt that this was a type of rebirth. He decided to use this method to combine human anatomy with objects from the outside world. He said, "It was a kind of wish to connect and compare myself, human in shape, a small, apertured microcosm, with the vast external universe spreading infinitely outward." He then took the technique further a few months later with a project called Inner Flower by using X-rays instead. He stated, "My previous works have been done with medical photographs taken by you, the hospital doctors. But now, I wanted to photograph my own interior with X-rays. My burning passion for X-ray photographs wouldn't allow me to stop short of doing it myself." The process made him feel a connection with childhood and with past photographic generations, since he heavily relied on images that went direct to photo paper, which is a method he used in early age, and was one that was used by those who established the photographic processes in different regards, namely Man Ray and Henry Fox Talbot, who had explored this technique 50 to 100 years earlier. Vertical horizon, created in the 90s, was the byproduct of the aftermath of a surgery to remove a tumor, which Narahara felt changed his vision as he once again felt reborn. Double vision was also the result of a hospital visit that gave Narahara double vision. He then implemented this into the editing process of these photos. And the final projects, Lover of Time and Heaven, are about Narahara's future and his reflections on how photography and time are always intertwined. Sometimes, I am filled with a mysterious feeling. I feel as if the image I'm photographing has already been prepared in some future space and time, and I am simply meeting up with it. The undulation of the universe, which has until this moment been spread out indistinctly beyond space and time, contracts the moment I begin to come conscious of it, and by the time I focus my consciousness on it, it makes its appearance as a photograph. Thanks to Behance for sponsoring this video. If you want to know how to use their plugin to get the look of film on your digital photo or video, check the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, keep developing.